Sometimes I wonder if home is just a collection of memories we carry. Because the house I walked into that day wasn't mine anymore. The walls had been stripped of Dad's photographs, replaced by abstract art in muted grays and beiges. Our worn leather couch, the one where Dad and I spent countless movie nights, was gone, replaced by some modern monstrosity that looked about as comfortable as a marble slab. I stood in the doorway, my weekend bag still clutched in my hand, trying to process what felt like walking into a stranger's house. The scent of unfamiliar potpourri burned my nostrils, erasing the lingering traces of Dad's favorite sandalwood incense that Mom had kept burning since he passed. "Harmony, you're early," Mom's voice carried from the kitchen, followed by the clatter of dishes and unfamiliar laughter. "Come meet everyone." Everyone. I'd only been gone for 2 days, visiting Grandpa Walter. I dragged myself toward the kitchen, each step feeling heavier than the last. The scene that greeted me made my stomach twist. Mom, wearing a silk blouse I'd never seen before, stood at the counter beside a tall man with salt and pepper hair. A teenage girl perched on one of our bar stools, tapping away at her phone. "Sweetheart, this is Gregory and his daughter Sophie." Mom's smile was too bright, too forced. "Gregory and I have been seeing each other for a while now, and well." She held up her left hand, where a diamond ring caught the light. The room started spinning. "A while," my voice came out sharper than I intended. "How long is a while exactly?" "6 months," Gregory answered, stepping forward with an extended hand. "Your mother's told us so much about you." I stared at his hand until he awkwardly withdrew it. 6 months. Dad had been gone for barely 8. "We wanted to surprise you with the renovations," Mom continued, either oblivious to or ignoring my reaction. "Sophie has wonderful taste. She helped pick out everything." Sophie finally looked up from her phone. "The old stuff was kind of depressing, no offense." "That old stuff was my dad's." The words came out like ice. "Harmony," Mom's tone carried a warning. "We need to move forward. It's what your father would have wanted." "Really? Did he tell you that before or after you started dating while he was dying?" "That's enough." Mom's face flushed. "Gregory and Sophie are moving in next week. I know this is a lot to process, but you need to adjust your attitude." I looked around the kitchen, at the new appliances, the fancy coffee maker that replaced Dad's beloved French press, the stranger and his daughter who had somehow colonized our space while I wasn't looking. "Where are Dad's things?" "We packed them away. The important stuff is in storage." "Storage?" My voice cracked. "Like he's just some old furniture you didn't want anymore." "Harmony Carter, you will not speak to me this way in front of our guests." "Our guests?" I laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. "They're not guests, Mom. You've already given them everything, haven't you? Did you even wait until Dad was cold in his grave?" I turned and ran upstairs before she could respond, taking the steps 2 at a time. My room was the only space untouched by this invasion. But for how long? How long before that too was erased, redecorated, given to Sophie? I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and called Grandpa Walter. "I can't stay here," I whispered when he answered. "Everything's different. She's different. Dad's just gone, like he never existed." "Come back," he said simply. "Your room here is always waiting." I started packing before he finished speaking, knowing this was just the beginning. Mom hadn't just redecorated our house, she'd declared war on Dad's memory. And I wasn't about to let her win. Grandpa Walter's guest room became my sanctuary over the next 2 weeks. Each morning, I'd wake up to the smell of coffee and bacon, so different from Mom's protein smoothies, and Sophie's endless chatter about her social media following. "Your mother called again," Walter said one morning, sliding a plate of eggs in front of me. His weathered hands trembled slightly, something I'd been noticing more lately. "Did she ask about me, or just complain that I'm ruining her perfect new family portrait?" "Harmony," his voice carried that gentle reproach that always made me feel like a child. "She wants you home." I stabbed at my eggs. "That's not home anymore. It's their show house now, with their fancy furniture and their..." The doorbell cut me off. Walter's eyebrows drew together. He rarely got visitors this early. When he opened the door, Gregory's voice carried into the kitchen, smooth as oil. "Walter, hope we're not interrupting breakfast." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth, as Gregory and Mom walked in like they owned the place. Mom wore her real estate agent smile, the one that could charm anyone into buying a cardboard box. "We need to discuss some things as a family," she announced, pointedly ignoring my death glare. "Actually, I was just leaving for school." I stood, but Walter's hand on my shoulder kept me in place. "Sit down, Cricket," he said, using Dad's old nickname for me. "Let's hear them out." Gregory pulled out a chair, his expensive watch catching the morning light. "Walter, we've been thinking about your situation. Living alone in this big house can't be easy at your age." My stomach dropped. Walter's fingers tightened on my shoulder. "I manage just fine," he said quietly. "Of course you do," Mom jumped in. "But Gregory has experience in elder care management. We've been looking at some wonderful assisted living communities." "Like hell you have," the words exploded out of me. "This is about the house, isn't it? You want to move him out so you can move in." "Harmony," Mom's smile cracked. "This is about what's best for everyone. The school district here is excellent for Sophie." "There it is," I laughed bitterly. "Everything's about Sophie now, isn't it? Dad's barely gone, and you're already planning to kick his father out of his own home." "That's not fair," Gregory interjected. "We're trying to help, Walter. The proceeds from selling this place could set you up comfortably." "I'm not selling." Walter's voice was steel. "Mason grew up in this house. Harmony practically lived here every summer. This isn't just property to be flipped." "Be reasonable," Mom pressed. "You can't manage alone forever. And with Harmony going to college soon." I caught the flash in Gregory's eyes at the mention of college. Something about it made my skin crawl. "Actually," I said slowly, "I've been thinking about taking a gap year. Stay here with Grandpa." Mom's face went white. "Absolutely not. We've discussed this. You're going to community college while living at home." "No, you discussed it, just like you discussed redecorating and getting engaged and erasing Dad from our lives. Your father would want us to move forward." Mom's composure finally cracked. "He wouldn't want us living in the past." "How would you know what he'd want? You were too busy planning your new life while he was dying." The silence that followed was deafening. Gregory cleared his throat, reaching for Mom's hand. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion another time. Perhaps you shouldn't continue it at all." Walter stood, suddenly looking every bit his 72 years. "This is my home, Lydia. It will remain my home. And Harmony is welcome here as long as she needs." They left shortly after, Mom's heels clicking angrily on the sidewalk. I watched through the window as Gregory helped her into his luxury car, his hand lingering possessively on her back. "You okay, Cricket?" Walter asked. "No." I turned to face him. "They're not going to stop, are they?" "Probably not." He smiled sadly. "But neither are we." I hugged him tight, breathing in the familiar scent of his aftershave, wondering how much time we had before they tried again. Because they would try again. I could see it in Gregory's calculating eyes. This was just the opening move in a game I was only beginning to understand. The bank statement sat on my laptop screen like a bomb waiting to detonate. I'd only logged into Dad's old account out of habit. He'd always insisted I learn about managing money early, but the numbers didn't make sense. The college fund he'd set up for me, the one that had held over $50,000 when he died, now showed a balance of $1,200. My hands shook as I scrolled through the transaction history. A series of transfers had drained the account over the past 3 months, each one authorized by Mom as the surviving account holder. The front door slammed downstairs at Walter's house, followed by his muffled greeting. Mom's voice carried up the stairs. She'd been showing up unannounced lately, probably hoping to wear down his resistance about selling. I grabbed my phone and snapped photos of the transaction records before closing the laptop. By the time I reached the kitchen, Mom was arranging grocery bags on the counter while Walter watched with barely concealed annoyance. Sophie's private school application was accepted, Mom announced, not even looking at me. We're all so excited. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Is that what you needed Dad's money for? She froze, just for a second, before continuing to unpack organic vegetables. I don't know what you're talking about. The college fund. My college fund. The one Dad saved for 10 years to build. I held up my phone, showing the transaction history. $50,000, Mom, gone in 3 months. Walter straightened in his chair. Lydia, tell me you didn't. It's more complicated than that. She finally turned to face us, her expression hardening. Gregory and I agreed that Sophie's education. Gregory? I laughed, the sound raw in my throat. Dad worked overtime for years to save that money. He skipped vacations, drove that old car, all so I could go to college. And you gave it to Gregory's daughter. Sophie deserves the same opportunities. Then let Gregory pay for them. The words exploded out of me. That money was Dad's last gift to me, and you stole it. I did not steal anything. Mom's voice turned sharp. I am still your mother, and I made a decision that benefits this entire family. We're not a family anymore, my voice cracked. We're just extras in the Gregory and Sophie show. That's enough. She slammed a hand on the counter. I've tried to be patient, but this attitude has to stop. You're coming home today. No more hiding at Walter's. Like hell she is. Walter stood, his voice quiet but firm. You've gone too far, Lydia. Stay out of this, Dad. Mom's eyes flashed. This is between me and my daughter. Your daughter. I stepped closer, trembling with rage. The one you betrayed, or the one you bought with my future. I did what I had to do to secure our future, all of our futures. She grabbed her purse. Gregory has connections. Sophie's education will benefit everyone in this family. Gregory isn't family, I shouted. And that money wasn't yours to give away. Well, it's done now. She headed for the door, then paused. When you're ready to be reasonable, we can discuss community college options. Gregory knows some excellent programs. Get out. The words came out, barely above a whisper. She blinked. Excuse me. Get out. I grabbed one of the grocery bags and hurled it at the door. Apples scattered across the floor like dropped grenades. Get out of this house. Get out of my life. Go play perfect family with Gregory and Sophie and leave me alone. Mom stared at me for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then she straightened her shoulders and walked out, stepping over the scattered produce without another word. The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. Walter's hand found my shoulder, steady despite his tremors. We'll figure something out, Cricket, he said softly. I nodded, but my mind was already racing ahead. Dad had taught me about more than just bank accounts. He'd taught me about justice, about standing up for what's right. And somewhere in the mess Mom and Gregory had made of our lives, there had to be a way to make things right. I just had to find it. The first sign something was wrong came when Walter couldn't remember where he'd put his coffee cup. 3 times in one morning, he'd make a fresh cup, set it down somewhere, then start the process all over again. I found them later, one in the bathroom, one on the bookshelf, one growing cold by the washing machine. Just a foggy morning, he insisted. But his hands shook more than usual as he tried to sign some paperwork I'd brought home from school. I was researching local colleges on my laptop when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Gregory's number. Walter declined the call, but his expression darkened. They've been persistent, he said, rubbing his temples. Calling about the house almost daily now. Why didn't you tell me? You've got enough to worry about. He attempted a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Besides, I can handle Gregory Benson. His phone buzzed again. A text this time. Walter squinted at the screen, then handed it to me. Must have hit something wrong. The letters are all jumbled. My stomach clenched as I looked at the perfectly clear message. Final offer stands until Friday. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The letters look fine, Grandpa. He stared at me for a long moment, then slowly sat down. Ah, that single syllable carried the weight of everything we weren't saying. I reached for his hand, noting how cold his fingers felt. Have you seen Dr. Matthews lately? Last week, he withdrew his hand, suddenly fascinated by a loose thread on his sweater. There are some concerns. Nothing definitive yet. The doorbell interrupted us. Through the window, I spotted Mom's car in the driveway. Perfect timing, Walter muttered, heading for the door. Mom burst in before he could reach it, waving a stack of papers. Dad, you need to look at these projections. The market won't stay this high forever, and the offer Gregory's group is making is not up for discussion. Walter's voice had an edge I'd never heard before. You're being unreasonable. She spread the papers across the coffee table. These retirement communities have everything you need: medical care, social activities. What he needs is for you to back off, I snapped. Mom's eyes narrowed. Stay out of this, Harmony. This is about your grandfather's future. No, it's about Gregory wanting this house. Don't pretend it's anything else. Gregory's investment group sees potential here, yes, but this is about taking care of family, like you took care of my college fund? Walter swayed slightly, grabbing the wall for support. Neither of us noticed at first, too caught up in our argument. That money is being put to good use, Mom insisted. Sophie's future. A loud thud cut her off. Walter had slumped against the wall, his face ashen. Grandpa, I reached him first, helping him to the couch. Mom, get some water. She hesitated, then hurried to the kitchen. Walter squeezed my hand, his grip weaker than this morning. I'm fine, he whispered. Just dizzy. Mom returned with the water, hovering uncertainly. Dad, this is exactly why you need more support. Professional care. What I need, Walter interrupted, his voice stronger, is for you to stop trying to profit from my illness. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's face went blank. That perfect real estate agent mask sliding into place. I don't know what you mean. Gregory's been calling doctors' offices, I said quietly, asking about Grandpa's condition. How did he even know which doctors to call? Mom, she flushed. He's concerned about family. He's concerned about getting this house before the market drops. Walter struggled to sit up straighter. I may be sick, Lydia, but I'm not stupid. Mom gathered her papers with shaking hands. We'll discuss this when you're feeling more reasonable. After she left, I helped Walter upstairs to rest. Standing in his doorway, watching him settle into bed, I felt something inside me harden into resolve. We need to talk to a lawyer, I said. Tomorrow. He nodded, already drifting off. Your father would be proud of you, Cricket. I closed his door quietly, then went downstairs to start making calls. Mom and Gregory wanted a war over legacies. Fine, they'd get one. The lawyer's office felt too warm, despite the spring chill outside. I watched Walter's hands shake as he signed another document, each tremor a reminder of how much worse he'd gotten in just 2 weeks. This power of attorney ensures Harmony can make medical decisions if you become incapacitated, the lawyer explained, sliding another form across the desk. But there's something else we should discuss. Walter nodded, reaching for his water glass. Your daughter's fiancé has been making inquiries about involuntary conservatorship. The glass slipped from Walter's hand, water spreading across the mahogany desk like spilled secrets. On what grounds? I demanded, already knowing the answer. They're building a case around his cognitive decline. The lawyer's expression remained neutral. Your mother would be appointed as conservator, giving her control over his medical care and assets. Walter's laugh was bitter. Including the house. Precisely. The lawyer leaned forward. Mr. Carter, I strongly recommend we file a counter petition immediately. With your current diagnosis. My phone buzzed, a text from Sophie, of all people. Mom says to check your email, important about graduation. The email loaded slowly, each word hitting like a punch. Due to your extended absences, your graduation status is under review. They're trying to stop me from graduating. My voice sounded distant, even to myself. Mom's on the school board. She's using that to force you home, Walter finished. Where they can control you too. The lawyer cleared his throat. There's one other option, but it's rather extreme. We listened as he outlined the plan. With each detail, I felt something inside me harden, like metal being forged. Do it, Walter said before I could speak. All of it. The drive home was silent until Walter suddenly said, "Stop at the house. Grandpa, you should rest. Please, Cricket." I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, now unrecognizable with its new landscaping and modern fixtures. Mom's car wasn't there, but Gregory's was. "Wait here," Walter said, using his spare key to enter. Through the window, I watched him move slowly through the living room, touching things. The wall where Dad's photos used to hang. The spot where our old couch had been. Gregory appeared from his home office, surprise turning to calculation on his face. Their conversation was muffled, but Gregory's posture grew increasingly tense. Walter's voice, raised just enough for me to catch, "Think I don't know what you did to your last wife's father?" Gregory took a step back, face draining of color. Walter emerged minutes later, looking exhausted but satisfied. "Take me home, Cricket." "What did you say to him?" "Just reminded him that old men often have interesting friends and good memories." He closed his eyes. "Your father wasn't the only one who knew how to plan ahead." That night, I couldn't sleep. The lawyer's words kept spinning through my head, mixing with memories. Dad teaching me to stand up for myself. Mom erasing him from our lives. Gregory's smug smile as he claimed our spaces one by one. My phone lit up with Mom's name. "This rebellion needs to end. Come home tomorrow, or there will be consequences." I typed back, "You're right, there will be." The next morning, Walter had another episode. Worse than before. As the paramedics loaded him into the ambulance, he gripped my hand. "Whatever happens," he whispered, "remember what your father always said about chess." I squeezed his hand, remembering Dad's lessons at the kitchen table. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a piece to win the game. Mom and Gregory arrived at the hospital minutes after us, all concerned faces and calculated sympathy. They didn't notice me slipping away to meet the lawyer in the parking lot, or see me signing the papers that would change everything. They wanted to play games with people's lives, fine. But they'd forgotten something crucial. I'd learned strategy from the best, and unlike them, I had nothing left to lose. Let the real game begin. The hospital chapel smelled like artificial flowers and broken promises. I sat in the back row, staring at the notification on my phone. Time of death, 3:47 a.m. 3 hours ago. Walter had slipped away while I was getting coffee, while Mom was handling paperwork, while Gregory was probably already calling his real estate contacts. The door creaked open. "There you are," Mom's voice, trying for sympathy, but landing somewhere near impatience. "We need to discuss arrangements." "Already?" My voice cracked. "He's barely cold." "Harmony." She sat beside me, smoothing her skirt. "There are practical matters. Like selling his house, moving his things, erasing him like you erased Dad? That's not fair." She reached for my hand. I pulled away. "The house needs to be handled before..." "Before what?" I stood, fury rising like bile. "Before I can stop you from stealing that too?" Her expression hardened. "The will reading is tomorrow. Gregory's lawyer thinks..." I laughed, the sound echoing off chapel walls. "Of course he does. Did you know Walter visited Gregory last week? Had quite an interesting conversation about Gregory's past." Mom's face went still. "What are you talking about?" "Ask your fiancé about his previous marriage, about what happened to his father-in-law's estate." She left without another word. I waited until her footsteps faded before pulling out the envelope Walter had given me last week. Inside was a key and an address for a safety deposit box. The bank opened at 9. I sat in the parking lot, watching the sun rise over buildings that felt too permanent, too unchanged by Walter's absence. The safety deposit box contained another envelope, this one in Dad's handwriting. For cricket, when the storm hits. My hands shook as I read his letter. With each word, the pieces clicked together. Dad's suspicious questions about Gregory years ago, Walter's careful planning, the trail of financial records that would destroy Gregory's reputation and business. But the final paragraph stopped my breath. Remember, sweetheart, revenge is like poison. It might hurt your enemy, but it burns you first. Whatever you choose it for yourself, not against them. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. Mom's crying. Greg's yelling. What did you do? Before I could respond, another message came through. From Gregory. Meeting. Now. Your grandfather's house. Come alone, or the evidence about his cognitive state goes public. I drove to Walter's house in a daze. Dad's letter burning a hole in my pocket. Gregory's car was already there, parked crooked in his haste. He stood in the living room, holding a manila envelope. Your grandfather was quite the detective. Runs in the family. This ends now. He waved the envelope. You back off, let the house sale proceed normally, and these records stay buried. Otherwise what? I pulled out my own envelope. You'll destroy Walter's reputation. Funny thing about dead men, they're beyond caring. But your investors might care about these. His face twisted. You're just like your father, too righteous to see reality. Your mother needs this sale. Sophie's school, our future. Don't. The word came out like a whip crack. Don't pretend this is about them. Walter told me everything about your last wife's father. How you manipulated the conservatorship, sold his property, left him in a state facility to die. Gregory moved faster than I expected. The envelope tore from my grasp, papers scattering like dead leaves. His fingers dug into my arm. You have no idea what you're dealing with, little girl. Actually, a new voice said, I think she does. We both turned. Mom stood in the doorway, phone recording everything. Behind her, a man in a suit watched with professional interest. Detective, Mom said quietly, I believe this is what you needed to see. Gregory's grip went slack. As the detective read him his rights, Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. She didn't need to. We both knew this victory tasted like ashes. I picked up Dad's scattered letter, his words blurring through my tears. Remember, revenge burns you first. He was right. I'd won. But at what cost? In destroying Gregory, I'd also destroyed whatever was left of my family. The question was, where do you go when winning feels exactly like losing? The reading of Walter's will felt like a funeral all over again, but with sharks circling instead of mourners. Mom sat rigid beside her lawyer, while Sophie huddled in the corner, phone forgotten for once. Gregory's absence hung in the air like smoke. Before we proceed, Walter's lawyer began. There's a video Mr. Carter requested we watch. The screen flickered to life, showing Walter in his study, looking stronger than his final days. If you're watching this, he said, I'm gone. And knowing my daughter and her fiancé, they're ready to pounce. Mom flinched, but Mason and I learned something watching Gregory destroy his last family. Patience is everything. Walter's eyes seemed to meet mine through the screen. So we waited, we watched, and we planned. The lawyer paused the video, distributing thick folders, financial records, property deeds, and evidence of Mr. Benson's previous activities. Mom's hand shook as she opened her folder. This can't be real. Oh, it's real. I pulled out Dad's letter. Dad started investigating Gregory years ago. When he first tried to buy into Dad's business, he found everything: the fraud, the elder abuse, the hidden accounts. Why didn't he say anything? Mom's voice cracked. Because you wouldn't have believed him. Just like you didn't believe me about the college fund, or about Gregory using you to get to Walter's property. The video resumed. Walter's voice filled the room. So here's what's going to happen. The house goes to Harmony, along with my estate, but there's a condition. I straightened, hearing this for the first time. She has to offer her mother a choice. Walter's eyes twinkled. Lydia, you can keep everything Gregory promised you. The lifestyle, the status, his empty words. Or you can have your daughter back. But you can't have both. Mom's lawyer leaned forward. This stipulation isn't legally binding. No, Mom cut him off. It's not about legality. Sophie stood suddenly. I should go. This is family stuff. Sophie, wait. I caught her arm. You're as much a victim here as anyone. Stay. The lawyer cleared his throat. There's more. Mr. Carter set up a trust for both Harmony and Sophie's education, separate from any other assets. Sophie sank back down, tears streaming silently. He what? Mom whispered. Because that's what family actually does, I said. They protect each other. They don't steal from their children or use them as pawns. I never meant. Mom's composure cracked. Everything I did, I thought I was building something better, something stable. By erasing Dad, by throwing away everything he worked for, by surviving. She stood, mascara running. Do you know how terrified I was? Alone with a teenager, no career of my own. Gregory offered security, a future. I wanted to feel safe. And I wanted my mother. The words came out raw. I wanted the mom who used to make Sunday pancakes and laugh at Dad's terrible jokes. The one who taught me to be strong, not the one who threw away her daughter for a con man's promises. Mom moved toward me, then stopped, uncertain. Is it too late? I thought about Dad's letter, about Walter's final lessons in strategy and sacrifice, about the difference between winning and healing. That depends, I said quietly. Are you ready to choose? She looked around the room, at the evidence of Gregory's deception, at Sophie's tears, at the paused image of Walter on the screen. Then she reached for her engagement ring. I should have chosen you from the beginning. The ring clattered on the table. I'm so sorry, Harmony. It wasn't enough. Not yet. But as Sophie came to hug her mother, as the lawyer continued reading Walter's carefully crafted provisions, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, exactly, but possibility. Dad's letter had warned me about the cost of revenge. But maybe Walter's final move wasn't about revenge at all. Maybe it was about giving us all a chance to choose differently. I touched the ring on the table, this symbol of everything that had gone wrong. We've got a lot to figure out. Mom nodded, tears falling freely now. We do, but this time, I choose my daughter. The last box from Walter's study sat unopened on my new dorm room desk. Mom hovered in the doorway, uncertain whether to step in or stay back. We'd been doing this dance for weeks now, testing boundaries, rebuilding trust, one careful moment at a time. Sophie's settling into her new school, she said. The trust fund, it means everything to her. I nodded, running my fingers over the box's worn edges. Walter knew what he was doing, for all of us. He did. She stepped inside, touching a framed photo of Dad and Walter I'd hung on the wall. I found something at the house yesterday, in the attic. She pulled out an envelope, Dad's handwriting visible through the worn paper. It's addressed to both of us. I haven't opened it. My hands shook as I broke the seal. Inside was a single chess piece, a queen, and a note. Remember, the queen protects her family, but she's strongest when she knows which battles matter. Love, Mason. Mom's breath caught. He knew. About Gregory. About everything. He was trying to warn me. No, I said, studying the chess piece. He was teaching us both, like that last game we played, when he let me win by sacrificing his queen to save his king. I don't understand. Sometimes winning isn't about destroying your opponent. It's about protecting what matters, even if it costs you something. I opened Walter's box, revealing stacks of photos, Mom and Dad's wedding, my childhood birthdays, family vacations. Moments Gregory had tried to erase, preserved by two men who'd understood the long game better than I had. I've been thinking about Walter's house, I said quietly. It's too big for just visits during breaks. Mom stiffened. You're not dropping out. No, but maybe you and Sophie could live there. Keep it in the family. Harmony. She touched the chess piece. That house is your inheritance, and family is my legacy. That's what Dad and Walter were trying to tell us. I pulled out a photo. Mom teaching me to ride a bike. Dad catching me as I fell. Gregory almost won by making us forget that. She sat on my bed, tears falling. I don't deserve this chance. Maybe not. But Dad thought we both deserved to learn from his last lesson. I held out the queen. Besides, someone needs to help Sophie navigate senior year. And I hear her new guardian knows something about fresh starts. Mom laughed through her tears. When did you get so wise? I had good teachers. I placed the chess piece on my desk, next to the photo of Dad and Walter, even if it took me a while to understand their lessons. A knock at the door made us turn. Sophie stood there, holding a familiar French press coffee maker. Found this in storage, she said hesitantly. Thought maybe your dad would want it to have a home here. I felt something shift, like the final piece of a puzzle, clicking into place. Not perfect, not completely healed, but possible, real. Come in, I said. I'll teach you how to use it. Dad had a whole ritual. Said coffee was just an excuse for family to slow down and talk. As Sophie set up the coffee maker, as Mom shared stories about Dad's terrible coffee puns, I thought about Walter's final gift, not the money or the house, but this moment. 3 broken people learning to be family again, differently, but maybe better. The queen stood guard on my desk, a reminder that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in winning the game, but in changing how you play it. Dad and Walter had known that all along. They'd given us the pieces, we just had to figure out how to use them. I opened my window, letting in the autumn air, somewhere between revenge and forgiveness, between holding on and letting go. We'd found our way home. Different home, different family, but ours all the same. The coffee maker gurgled, filling the room with the scent of memories and possibilities. We had a lot to learn, a lot to rebuild, but for now this was enough. 3 cups of coffee, 2 generations of lessons, and 1 family finding its way back together.
What are you doing here? This is a high-end residential area. We live in that luxury apartment building over there. This area isn't for people like you. I couldn't believe I ran into him again, the man who left me for a younger, wealthier woman. And now, here they were, both looking down on me again. You're still as plain and poor as ever, huh? Oh, by the way, I make over $100,000 a year now. Over $100,000? That must be tough. The unexpected comment came from my husband. My name is Emily Johnson. I'm 28 years old and work at a company that deals with ceramics. My love for ceramics began during a family trip in middle school, when we stopped by a pottery market that my mother adored. Now, I'm lucky to have turned that passion into my career. I used to think it was fine to stay single forever, but life has a funny way of surprising you. I got involved in a town revitalization project through a pottery market where I met Tom, who worked at an event planning company. We started dating. Emily works hard and respects my job. I feel like I can build a stable life with her. That's what he used to say, and I also thought we could make it work. Even after getting married, since I had no intention of quitting my job. Tom's job required him to travel a lot for events, and he was often busy on weekends. My job was similar, with the occasional need to work on weekends due to the kiln schedule. It was tough not being able to meet up on our days off. And sometimes plans got cancelled at the last minute, but I thought it was all part of the deal. I was too naive. Tom started canceling plans more frequently, even skipping our wedding planning meetings. Unlike before, he stopped answering his phone. One day, after finishing a meeting, I was heading towards the station when I spotted Tom on the opposite sidewalk. Wow, what a coincidence! I thought we could have dinner together since I could head home early today. As soon as the light turned green, I rushed across the street to catch up with him. Tom. Finished with work? Want to grab dinner? Huh? Standing next to Tom was a tall, stunning woman. And they both turned to look at me at the same time. Her arm was tightly wrapped around his. Emily. What are you doing here? What a coincidence. I had a meeting nearby, just finished. Are you still working? Who's this? It didn't seem like a work situation at all, but I tried to stay calm. I knew Tom often worked with promotional models at events. Oh, this is Catherine, she's a model. Hello. She smiled brightly at me. Wow, she's gorgeous and has a great figure. Of course, she's a model. So, it must be work-related. I felt a bit relieved. Although, I wasn't thrilled about them linking arms, she hadn't let go at all. But maybe it's just normal for someone in her line of work? Hello. I'm Emily Johnson, Tom's fiancée. As I introduced myself, Tom suddenly looked as if he had bitten into something sour. And Catherine glanced between us before bursting into laughter. Wait, this is your fiancé? Oh my gosh, I can't believe we ran into each other, Tommy. Tommy? Come on, I told you to sort this out already. Might as well do it now. Nodding at her words, he turned to me. Emily, listen, I'm with Catherine now. What? I'm sorry, but I want to call off the engagement. I'm going to marry Catherine. What? Wait, what are you saying, Tom? I met Catherine at an outdoor festival event, and we just instantly felt like it was fate. Sorry. But it was Tommy who insisted he'd break up with his girlfriend for me. She said it so casually. So, thanks for everything up until now. Wait, Tom. At least let's have a proper talk. But there's really nothing left to talk about. What? My mind's already made up. Catherine is cute, has a great figure, and is honestly amazing. She's only 24 and comes from a wealthy family. Oh, Tommy, it's just because my dad is the CEO. Anyway, I'm going to marry Catherine and become part of her family. What? Are you quitting your job too? I thought you liked your job. Catherine asked me to. Plus, it'll be more profitable than my current job. Oh, and make sure to cancel the wedding venue. Don't worry, I'll cover the cancellation fees since it's my decision. Oh, Tommy, you're so responsible. I just can't wait to be with Catherine. You're so cool. I struggled to keep from collapsing. It was clear that no matter what I said, it wouldn't change anything. Tom was completely smitten, just like Catherine said. All right. I managed to force out the words. I can't cry, not here, not in front of these people. Well, see ya. Good luck with your ceramics work. What's that supposed to mean? The two of them walked off, arms linked, laughing together. 2 years have passed since I broke up with Tom. Now, at 30, I'm still fully dedicated to my work. Looking back, I don't miss him at all. In fact, I consider myself lucky that I didn't have to deal with his infidelity after marriage. Seeing my newly designed ceramics fresh out of the kiln gave me a boost of energy. And there was someone who had been watching over me, Robert Black. A craftsman I've worked with for years. I always thought his mind was entirely focused on pottery. So, when he asked me out and confessed his feelings on the 3rd date, I was taken aback. I had always admired him as a craftsman, so I was genuinely happy. But with the trauma I had been through, I couldn't easily dive into another relationship. I decided to be completely honest with him. When I was engaged, I had announced it to everyone at the company and among the kiln workers. So he knew about the breakup too. He listened quietly, then gave me his usual gentle smile. That must have been really hard for you. Yes. When I heard you were getting married, I was really shocked. But I figured it was only natural for someone as wonderful as you to have a partner. And I blamed myself for not making a move sooner. What? I hadn't expected to hear that. When you told me that the engagement was off and forced a smile, I wanted to be there for you immediately, but I knew you needed time. So I focused on my work, hoping that creating beautiful pottery would help lift your spirits. You've been thinking of me for that long. And believe it or not, I'm actually quite popular. Huh? Maybe it's because my grandfather is wealthy. But I've had my fair share of attention from some very beautiful women. Yet, I never felt a spark. I'd much rather spend my time working with clay. I see. He wasn't bragging or joking, he said it all in a straightforward, serious tone. As I was thinking about how sincere he was, he looked directly at me. Emily, you're the first person I've ever wanted to make happy. I felt a mix of wanting to laugh and a warm feeling spreading through my heart. With him, I felt like everything would be okay. Before I knew it, I was saying, thank you. I'd be happy to be with you. A year later, Robert and I got married. Everyone at the company and the kiln celebrated our union. To continue working, we decided to live in 2 locations after getting married. One was his family's home near the kiln. I had heard his grandfather was wealthy. But I was shocked when I saw the grand estate they owned. We live in one corner of that estate. We often talk about how, in the future, I might leave my job to work with him at the kiln and live there permanently. The other place is a rented apartment in the city, close to my office. The apartment is still sparsely furnished. So today we decided to visit a nearby furniture store together. There, we had an unexpected encounter, not a pleasant one. While browsing the sofa section, a voice called out from behind us. Hey, isn't that you, Emily, the plain girl? Tom. More than 3 years had passed, but there was no forgetting my ex-fiancé, Tom. And standing next to him was his model wife, Catherine. I knew they had married after our breakup. She had been flaunting it on social media and in magazines. But Catherine looked different somehow, less attractive, with a harsher expression. I realized I hadn't seen her in the media lately either. Tom, too, was smirking, but his face lacked its former vigor. This is a high-end residential area. What are you doing here? Oh, do you need a permit to shop in this upscale area? No way, you don't live around here, do you? This store is expensive, you know, not a place for someone like you. Yeah, you still look as plain and poor as ever. Just like the color of that clay you love so much. I hadn't expected any apologies for the past, but their condescending attitude was exhausting. Yeah, having someone as dull as you hanging around here will drag down the store's reputation. People might mistake us for poor folks. Did you come all the way here? By the way, we live in that famous luxury tower over there. On the 25th floor, no less. Their bragging, even though I hadn't asked, irritated me. But responding would have been a waste of time. I kept silent. My lack of response seemed to annoy Tom, who continued to pester me. You still going on about how much you love pottery? With those shabby clothes. Oh, by the way, I'm making over $100,000 a year. He moved into my luxury apartment as my live-in husband. Just for me. Over $100,000? That must be tough. What? The sudden comment came from Robert, catching even me by surprise. We both spoke up at the same time, shocked by these obnoxious people. I can't help but worry about your financial situation, even though it's none of my business. Who's this guy? Tom asked, finally noticing my husband. Nice to meet you, I'm Robert Black. It seems my wife Emily was in your care in the past. For a moment, both Tom and Catherine looked surprised. But then they sneered, looking Robert up and down. So, you actually got married, huh? Well, you two are perfect for each other, plain and boring. Yeah, he looks like he's in a daze. I didn't even notice he was here. And what was that about tough, just now? Tom glared at Robert. Oh, well, you said you live on the 25th floor of that tower and make over $100,000 a year, right? That's right, over $100,000. Tom puffed out his chest. And with all those brand name items you're wearing, I couldn't help but worry about your financial situation, even though it's none of my business. You're just bitter and talking nonsense because you're poor. Sorry to disappoint you, but we're doing just fine. Is that so? By the way, is your wife feeling all right? She doesn't look well. What? Hey, Catherine, are you okay? It's nothing. You probably can't comprehend a figure like over $100,000 a year. What about you? Earning $10 an hour? No, it's not hourly. I'm not employed by a company, I stay at home. Are you serious? Anit? I knew it. She probably just married you to become a cash cow. Wait, that's not. Stop mocking my dear Emily. Trying to defend her, huh? Gotta do your part as a freeloading husband, I guess. And he calls his own wife my dear Emily. What a weirdo. The two of them continued to look down on us, completely misunderstanding the situation. Emily, let's go. Dealing with these people who have no future will only cause trouble. Yes, let's leave quickly. Robert took my hand and we walked away. Talk about sour grapes. Don't come back here again. Yeah, stop pretending you belong in this neighborhood. But we do live in the President Tower, you know. When Robert answered, they burst out laughing. Lying to cover up your embarrassment. That's such an obvious lie. Everyone knows that name. It's the most famous and expensive building in the area. There's no way any ET could afford to live there. Ignoring their loud laughter, we walked away. I can't believe we ran into them here. I'm so sorry, Robert. I apologized as we walked. No, I should apologize for being so forward, worrying about their financial situation. I guess this is why people say I'm bad at reading the room. Ha! I nearly burst out laughing at my husband's usual seriousness. That's not the issue, clearly, the rude ones were them. But they do live nearby, huh? I really hope we don't run into them again. Our apartment is also in this neighborhood. Their tower was one of our options. But I'm so glad we didn't choose it. Robert responded. Don't worry, they won't be around for long. Huh? I heard that the woman's family is wealthy. Do you know her last name? Huh? I had no idea what Robert meant, so I just stared at him blankly. A few days later, as Robert and I were leaving the building, we suddenly heard voices. There they are. They really do live here. Tom and Catherine appeared in front of us, and I was taken aback. What are you doing here? Please, help us. What? They're kicking us out of the tower. Oh. And why is that? Rent arrears. You were behind on rent? Well, that's understandable then. This really had nothing to do with us. Wait. They had been giving us more time. But suddenly they said they couldn't wait any longer, and it's all because of your husband. Catherine suddenly shouted. Why would that be my husband's fault? When they mentioned the name Black. Your husband turned out to be the owner of that tower. She looked furious, her face red with anger. It's not me, it's my father. What? It originally belonged to my grandfather, but it's in my father's name now. Either way, it doesn't matter. The management company said that if we don't pay up immediately, they'll start the eviction process. That's only natural. It's not a charity. What? That's why I said it must be tough making over $100,000 a year. What do you mean? Tom shouted. Making over $100,000 for a couple should allow for a comfortable lifestyle. But if you're living on the 25th floor of that tower, with a rent of $5,000 a month, surely you haven't forgotten about taxes, have you? What? And on top of that, you're indulging in luxury brands. It's no wonder you're drowning in debt. What? Catherine, you're the one who insisted on living there. When did the rent fall behind? I had to maintain relationships with people on the upper floors. High-end lunches, spa treatments, expensive bags, and jewelry are necessary to be taken seriously. You don't have to keep up with those people. Huh? Is it really that important to put on a show, even if it means going into debt? Debt. Tom shouted, genuinely shocked. Did he really not know? How could you be behind on rent and also in debt? What were you thinking? I had to be at the top of the social ladder. I can't afford to look shabby, especially as a model. You're hardly getting any modeling work anymore. I thought so. That explains why I haven't seen her around lately. That industry must be tough. New, younger faces keep popping up one after another. I murmured, and Catherine glared at me with a look of fury. Shut up, you plain girl. Damn it, what the hell, Catherine? You said you'd take care of the finances. And now you tell me you haven't even been paying the rent. But didn't you say her family is wealthy? You boasted about it, right? Why not just ask them for help? I offered a suggestion, albeit sarcastically, but with a hint of kindness. But Emily, her family's business has been struggling since last year. They don't have the extra money. What? That's probably why they couldn't pay the rent. They might have been relying on her family for support until now. Wait. How do you know about my dad's company? My grandfather is the chairman of the Black Corporation. What? The Black Corporation. A true, born wealthy individual. Tom muttered in a daze. My family used to do business with your father's company. But we don't have any dealings with them now. Robert continued calmly. My grandfather owns many properties, both in the U.S. and abroad. Then why didn't you say that the last time we met? It's not something I would bring up on my own. It would be improper. What? Are you trying to insult me? That wasn't my intention, but perhaps it ended up that way. This is so infuriating. I'm really sorry. Don't apologize with that tone. This was like a comedy sketch. As their argument gained rhythm, I was about to laugh when Catherine snapped at us. But it's not your money, is it? You're just leeching off your grandfather's wealth, just like I thought. I decided to set the record straight. Robert is a renowned potter. What? These days, customers are willing to wait months for his pieces. At the same time, he works with the kiln to produce more affordable items so that more people can enjoy his work. They sell out online every time. Wah! My husband has never relied on his grandfather's money. Don't compare him to yourself. My grandfather always says he's there to help if we ever need it, though. Robert chuckled and then turned serious as he looked at Tom and Catherine. As stated in the contract, if rent is overdue by 3 months, the lease is terminated, and eviction proceedings begin. If there's still no payment, forced eviction occurs within 2 to 3 months. The contract for that tower specifies this clearly. They waited 5 months because they believed your wife's story. What? She claimed that her husband's illness had reduced their income and begged for more time. What the hell, Catherine? What were you doing? But that was a complete lie. You were actually racking up debt while living lavishly. I reported this to my father and grandfather. Why the hell do you know about our debts? Tom was pale, and Catherine was nearly in tears. I investigated, Robert said calmly. I knew about your past from Emily. But we're happy now, so running into you by chance was just that, chance. Then that should be fine. But what did you say to Emily when you met? No apologies, just insults and disdain. That's unforgivable. No way. And I was genuinely concerned. You said you were living in that tower on an income of $100,000 a year. What? At least now you've realized the situation before your debts got any worse. Robert smiled as he spoke, leaving Tom and Catherine speechless, their mouths agape. What the hell is with this innocent rich boy? I was impressed by the apt description. Robert wasn't being sarcastic, he was just stating the facts. Maybe it's because he's born into wealth, or perhaps it's just his personality. I think it's the latter. Hey, Emily, please help us. We're sorry. Yeah, if you ask, he might do something. Wow, talk about a sudden change in attitude. I refuse. I smiled sweetly, imitating Robert's tone. Though my smile was far from innocent, it was quite the opposite. Your debts are none of my concern. Exactly. Emily, let's go. Wait. Don't just smile and cut us off like that. Ignoring their desperate cries, I walked away hand in hand with Robert. After that, Tom and Catherine were, of course, evicted from the tower. Catherine's father paid the overdue rent, but in exchange, he disowned her. With their family business in crisis, Catherine's parents were furious with her for squandering money to keep up appearances. And they made it clear she wasn't welcome until she paid back both the debts and the rent. Tom, fed up with her behavior, is reportedly in the midst of divorce proceedings. But considering he indulged her and left all the financial management to her, I'd say he's at least half to blame. Catherine, on the other hand, had borrowed money from shady sources without her family or Tom knowing. And now she's being chased by debt collectors. As for Robert and me, our new dinnerware line is doing well. And today we're at the kiln discussing our next designs. We want to gradually expand the range to include items for families, couples, and even individuals enjoying some personal relaxation time. Emily, what do you think about the color here? Can you take a look? Sure. And someday, when we have children, I want us all to sit down and eat together with the dishes Robert has crafted. Surrounded by the scent of clay, we continue working in the studio we love. During the bubble economy, I saw many people swayed by money. Even now, as a shareholder with an annual dividend of $100,000, I may not fully understand how to use money. My son's wife, who looked down on me as a poor pensioner and even spoke of cutting ties, was in for a surprise when she learned the truth. My name is Debbie. I'm 68 and living on a pension. I lost my husband in an accident when I was 33, and since then, I've raised my son on my own. He's now independent, with a family and 2 kids, making me a grandmother of 2. My lifestyle appears to be that of a pensioner, but in reality, I'm a shareholder with an annual dividend of $100,000. This is a fact almost unknown to anyone. More than 30 years ago, during the height of the bubble economy, I lived modestly with my husband and our son, who had just started elementary school, in an apartment in Brooklyn, New York. Though close to downtown, it still retained the atmosphere of an old downtown area, cluttered and bustling with old buildings being torn down to make way for new ones. My husband's company was doing well, with generous salaries and bonuses. Most people were caught up in the bubble, believing in a bright future ahead. Young women who had just graduated from high school flaunted brand bags, took taxis as their mode of transport, and those with a little money invested in stocks, while those with more bought and sold land and buildings. It was that kind of era. Both my husband and I were prudent types. We saved for our son's future and avoided frivolous spending, though we did indulge in the occasional luxurious family trip. The only extravagant thing was that my husband, persuaded by an insurance salesman, signed up for a high-priced life insurance policy. He was only 36 and healthy, and I opposed the idea of a $1 million life insurance policy as unnecessary. But the salesman argued, "What if something happens and you have a small child?" So, we signed up. Nothing changed because we had insurance. We continued to live happily as a normal family. But less than a year later, an unexpected tragedy struck. My husband died in a traffic accident. The other party was a rich man's son, and we were offered a substantial sum in compensation and settlement. With the insurance payout, I suddenly became a wealthy widow. The influx of money brought me no joy. I was merely heartbroken over losing my husband. If I could have exchanged all my wealth to bring him back, I wouldn't have hesitated. I truly loved my kind-hearted and cheerful husband. As I was drowning in sorrow, the comments from relatives at the funeral shocked me. "It's unfortunate, but you've come into quite a bit of money, haven't you? It was good timing to have that insurance. There's a really good property available, could you lend some money?" There were even those trying to sell me something. Everyone seemed a bit crazy from the bubble. From then on, I distanced myself from my relatives. Yet, as time passed and my grief somewhat eased, I was thankful that the money ensured that my son and I could live comfortably. By simply depositing the money in the bank, we earned enough interest to not worry about living expenses. I had never been interested in branded goods or gourmet foods, and I couldn't bring myself to waste the money I had exchanged for my husband's life, so I worked part-time at a nearby grocery store. Even just working a few hours while my son was in school allowed us a comfortable life. Many would envy us. As the bubble economy was about to end, I was 36, and my son had just entered junior high. Suddenly, the economy cooled, and companies began to go bankrupt one after another. What was all the festive noise until now, I wondered. Money truly makes people crazy. Those relatives would not have acted like that if it weren't for the bubble. Back then, bank interest was 5%. It was thanks to that interest that I could cover my living expenses. Interest rates would only go down from there. It was around this time that I met James, a 34-year-old working at a securities company, 2 years my junior. He too had been swayed by the bubble. He deeply regretted having several clients who went bankrupt because of his advice. Some even had families that fell apart. At least no one has taken their life, he said among colleagues who had similar experiences. I asked him, "I want to invest in companies that managed their business prudently during the bubble and have always been diligent." James, perhaps feeling a need for atonement, gladly accepted my request, and I became a shareholder in several companies. This turned out to be a success, Though there were no dramatic price increases, these companies grew steadily and solidly, making me a shareholder with an annual dividend of $100,000. I kept this, along with the fact that our house had money and the investments were doing well, hidden from my son. I always thought that money made people crazy, and knowing about the money wouldn't be good for my son's future. I have a little money left from your father. That's what I told my son. When he turned 30, he said he wanted to marry and brought his partner to meet me. She was a beautiful young lady, a coworker, 3 years his junior, named Vanessa. At that time, my son and I were still living in the old Brooklyn apartment in New York, where we had lived with my husband. The apartment was scheduled to be demolished during the bubble period, but the bubble collapsed just in time, and it remained. I thought that when my son got married, he could set up a new home, and whether he lived with me or not, we would think about it at that time. Above all, I was attached to the apartment where I had lived with my late husband. To Vanessa, it must have seemed like nothing more than a poor single mother household. She looked around the room without any reservation and said, "It's impossible for the 3 of us to live here, isn't it?" I thought so too, so I just nodded silently. Mom, we want to live by ourselves until we have children. We're thinking of renting an apartment nearby. It seems my son is already under his fiancé's thumb. Essentially, Vanessa does not want to live with me. I guess that can't be helped. About the living expenses. Until now, out of my son's monthly salary of $2,500, he had been contributing $1,500 to the household. In fact, I had been depositing it all directly into a bank account under his name. That's okay. There's still a little money left that your father left us, and I'll go out and work part-time. My son seemed relieved when I said this. Until then, I hadn't had such a bad impression of Vanessa, but while my son was in the bathroom, she said in a condescending tone, "Mother is from the bubble era, right? Born in an era when you could make money, yet living like this. If it were me, I definitely could have become rich." People can say anything in hindsight. Everyone was somewhat caught up in the wave of the times and danced along. It may seem foolish in retrospect, but there are things that can't be helped when you're in the midst of it. In about 5 years, the pension will start to be paid out, right? Please try your best without relying on us until then. It was said mockingly. I was tempted to retort. Actually, I have an annual stock dividend of $100,000. And I have over $3 million in savings. But I held back and said, "Please take good care of my son. My son has his own life. I should be there to help if he really needs it." That's what I decided, and I never revealed my secret to my son and his wife. Still, I secretly handed over the bank book with the money my son had been contributing to the household. Don't let your wife find out. Use it if you ever run into trouble. The savings were over $100,000. My son seemed quite surprised. "That's the money you've been contributing to the household since you started working 8 years ago. Didn't I say there was a little money left from your father? So, we're okay for living expenses. But I thought it wouldn't benefit you to say that. Money is important, but it can drive people crazy. Use it wisely." My son nodded deeply. 8 years have passed since he got married. I was still working part-time a few hours a day, a valuable connection to society. When I wasn't working, I installed a large monitor in my room to watch my favorite movies, or I would go to art galleries and museums, leading a fairly fulfilling life. I now have 2 grandchildren, a 6-year-old grandson and a 4-year-old granddaughter. Grandchildren are indeed precious. My son sometimes brings the 2 kids to visit the apartment, but Vanessa never accompanies them. However, one day, Vanessa came along unusually. Seeing her grandchildren, who are fond of me, she raised her eyes and said, "I knew it. You've been bringing the kids here all the time, haven't you?" "No, not that often, because you said you didn't want Mom to come over to the house." "Don't moms want to see their grandchildren too?" It seems my son had been bringing the grandchildren without telling Vanessa. "I'm sorry. I said I wanted to see the grandchildren. When I said this and showed a gesture of defending my son, Vanessa exclaimed hysterically, "I don't want a poor pensioner telling me what to do. You don't have money to contribute, so just keep quiet. I definitely don't want to take care of you, and if it were up to me, I'd be fine with cutting ties." With that said, I couldn't just stay silent. Vanessa, I hope you don't regret saying that. There's no way I'd regret it. That's that then. I won't let you see the children anymore. Saying this, she took the children's hands and started to leave. My son seemed shocked as well. "Hey. What are you saying?" "Wait a minute. Sorry, Mom. I'll have to leave it at that for today," he said and followed his wife and children. I sighed. It's been 8 years since my son got married. A daughter-in-law I've barely seen. A daughter-in-law who treated me like a nuisance from the start. It's normal for mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law to not get along. She had said that before, but there's nothing I can do if she never intended to get along in the first place. About 2 months later, my son came to my apartment after work, looking pale and obviously troubled. "Sorry, Mom. Vanessa found the bank book you gave me." It was indeed surprising that I had managed to keep it a secret for so long. It's been 8 years since they married. I'm amazed I managed to keep it hidden from that daughter-in-law for so long. From what I hear, my son's life has been quite miserable. Initially, his monthly allowance was $300, but it dropped to $200 after the first child was born, and then to $150 after the second child. It's tough, especially including lunch expenses. Meanwhile, while enforcing frugality on her husband, Vanessa seems to freely spend money on cosmetics, clothes, and nice lunches. So, I've been withdrawing a little each month from that savings. Like when I go out for drinks with colleagues or when my socks get holes, and I can't get new ones, I buy them myself. Hearing this made me feel so sorry for my son. Apparently, he had kept the transaction slips in his wallet, which Vanessa found. What is this statement? There's nearly $100,000 in the balance. She pressed him, and he confessed that it was money left by his father that I had given him. It's slightly different, but that's okay. It's all been taken away. About $20,000 seems to have already been withdrawn. I'm just so tired. According to my son, having that savings was what allowed him to endure various things. The daily complaints, bad-mouthing others, and calming down his wife's hysterical outbursts. I advised him to report his cash card as lost for now, so no more money could be withdrawn from the account. If you report it as lost and get it reissued, Vanessa won't be able to withdraw money. Contact the bank as soon as possible. That's right. I guess I was too shocked to think of anything. My son, to put it kindly, is laid back, to put it less kindly, a bit too slow. Didn't she say something terrible to you the other day? When I defend you a bit, she immediately starts yelling, "This mama's boy," and throws a fit. The situation seemed even more serious. Lately, it seems she's been saying horrible things to the kids when I'm not around. I thought this could not be overlooked. Think carefully. What's best for you and the children? If it's just you and the 2 grandchildren, I can take care of you. That was all I could say. I couldn't force them to divorce, and I believed marital issues should be resolved between the spouses. If you ever find yourself with nowhere to go, you're always welcome here. When I said this, my son nodded several times. A month later, I was on the sea. A luxurious cruise around Caribbean for 10 days with my son and the 2 grandchildren. 10 days of relaxing away from worldly troubles. The cruise ship was luxurious, with no time to be bored due to its many facilities. During this time, I received a call from Vanessa, my daughter-in-law. I could have ignored it, but I answered the phone. "Mother. Where are you? I went to the beauty salon and when I came back, your son had left a divorce notice and took the kids somewhere. He hasn't come back since yesterday. I went to your apartment and it's been demolished. My son is here with me. I switched to video call, showing the blue sea below and the luxurious interior of the ship. Huh, what? We're on a luxurious cruise ship with the grandchildren. We're about to have a welcome French dinner, so I'll be excusing myself. What? Wait a minute. What are you talking about? Ignoring Vanessa's shouting, I hung up the phone. Throughout dinner, she called several times. After enjoying a leisurely French meal, I answered the phone. You finally answered. What's going on? That apartment is being rebuilt into a condominium. We decided to take a little trip while construction is underway. My son had accumulated paid leave, so he's here with me. Huh? I don't understand what you're saying. It doesn't concern you since you wanted to sever ties, but actually, I'm a shareholder with an annual dividend of $100,000. Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not just a poor pensioner. What? What is that? Wait a minute, Mother. You've severed ties with me, and my son is talking about divorcing you. Anyway, we'll talk when we get back from our trip. We'll be staying in a hotel while the condominium is being built, so I'll contact you again. While Vanessa was still screaming on the other end, I hung up without paying any more attention. This past month has been eventful. Upon realizing she couldn't withdraw money, Vanessa had a fit and claimed a share of the property. Marital property refers to what is accumulated during the marriage. This doesn't apply, and she wouldn't accept my son's explanation. He pointed out how she spends $500 a month on clothes and cosmetics, to which she snapped back. What's wrong with a wife wanting to look beautiful? My son came to me with a completely exhausted face. I'm thinking about getting a divorce. He said it softly. Yeah. That might be a good idea. As for where we'll live, I'm thinking of rebuilding this apartment into a condo. Or maybe we should just buy a high-rise apartment. Initially, my son thought I was joking. What are you talking about, Mom? Actually, after the bubble burst, I had bought the land and building here, which had significantly decreased in value. The building was already old, but I continued to live there because it was filled with memories of my late husband. Thus, I finally decided to reveal the secret to my son. I still don't know if it was the right thing to do. Back then, I just didn't know what was best. I couldn't waste the money I got in exchange for your father's life. As for Vanessa, maybe things would have turned out differently if I had told her from the start that we had money. No, I think it was good. I couldn't indulge in great luxuries, but I never felt miserable. I had a normal student life. If I had known we had money, knowing me, I might have strayed off the path. I thought that wasn't true, but maybe that's just a parent's bias. Even with Vanessa, maybe it was good that we kept it hidden. To be kind because there's money, to sever ties because there isn't. Who would want a wife like that? My son said this with a touch of sadness. After revealing everything to him, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. My son said he'd rather live here if we were to rebuild, as he's not fond of high places. That was actually my preference as well, so I promptly contacted a construction company. The land isn't very large, so only a small condo could be built, but I was happy to continue living on this familiar land. Designated by me, Vanessa, with a solemn face, visited a luxury hotel room. My son, the grandchildren, and I had returned from our luxury cruise and decided to live in a downtown luxury hotel until the condo was ready. I had lived modestly without relying on money until now. The luxury cruise and the luxury hotel were my first real indulgences. I thought it was okay to treat ourselves this much. I spent my days visiting zoos and aquariums with my grandchildren, and sometimes I relaxed and hired a sitter. My son said it felt strange as he commuted to his office from the hotel. You were really wealthy, weren't you, Mother? Vanessa was like a different person now, quiet and gauging my reactions. You don't need to call me Mother anymore since you've severed ties. With an unervingly sweet voice, she said. Oh, don't say that. I know I wasn't a good daughter-in-law, but I'll change my heart from now on. I don't think you have a heart to change. I no longer intend to continue as husband and wife. My son said this decisively. What? The children need their mother, don't they? She tried to call the children to her side, but the 6-year-old said, I don't like mommy because she's scary. I like grandma better. Vanessa was taken aback. What? Why is everyone against me? I will never agree to a divorce. I expected her to say that. If that's your intention, we will hire a lawyer and fight. We will also demand that you return all the money you withdrew from my son's savings. Vanessa was at a loss for words. No matter how much it costs, I will secure the divorce and custody. But if you sign the divorce papers now, I won't demand the money you spent. I felt like I was being the villain, but Vanessa, seeing no chance of winning, slumped her shoulders and said, I understand. The 3-story condo was modest. The first floor had my residence and my son and grandchildren's home. Even knowing there was money, my son's lifestyle hadn't changed much. He bought aircraft model kits he loved since childhood and spent his weekends assembling them, his greatest joy. He couldn't take the models he had built long ago when he got married, so he displayed them in his room, always smiling. Isn't there anything else you want to do? I had asked him once. If that's what you're saying, Mom. You could indulge a little instead of donating all the time. He said that with a laugh. Money is important. It's definitely better to have it than not. But, you know, the things you love or enjoy aren't always solved by money. That might be true. When the grandchildren want to pursue something or decide on a path forward, they won't have to give up because of lack of money. When my brother and his wife's parents needed care, I could provide enough money. That might be enough. After the divorce, Vanessa met the children on visitation days, but gradually, these visits decreased and were often cancelled. It seems she's busy with matchmaking. She's inherently self-centered and cold. She probably thinks the fish she let go was the biggest one. Maybe she thinks there might be a richer man out there, searching desperately for the next man. Each time she meets a man, she might think, could he be wealthy, and act demurely? It's a funny thought, but I never heard she remarried. Debbie, you've been through a lot, haven't you? Saying this over lunch was James from the securities company, who seems to have risen high but has stayed single. The cruise was a lot of fun. Next, I'm thinking about going on a world cruise. How about joining me, James? His face lit up with surprise. Wow, that sounds fun. Are you sure I can join you? Of course. Traveling alone is lonely. Really? Just the two of us, not with your family? My son can't take such a long holiday. The kids have school, too. James and I have known each other for 30 years. I knew he had feelings for me, but I loved my late husband, and James, perhaps out of penance for the hardships he caused during the bubble, seemed to deny himself happiness, never actively pursuing me. Thank you for watching over me all these years. Would you like to grow old together with me? It might have been an unexpected proposal for James. Having money means I could live alone, but it's much better to have a partner to grow old with. Wait. Please let me propose formally later. James said, checking my ring size. I'm going to buy a ring now, so please excuse me. He hurried off. After receiving surprising news from my mother that my runaway sister had returned, I went home with my son Ryan only to find, as expected, women's shoes in the house. Moreover, she appeared in just her underwear. She laughed out loud and tauntingly said to me, I'll take the luxury high-rise condo and the rich husband. The poor should just keep working part-time forever. But then this voice came from behind. Too bad. Sleeping pills don't work on me anymore. It was Matt, my husband, who casually emerged and said this. He burst out laughing. So, she's trying to create a fait accompli with me? What would she gain from that? The house is all Sandra's. Yes, the high-rise condo we live in belongs to me. acquired through inheritance from my previous husband. My name is Sandra White. I am a 34-year-old who works at an organization dedicated to preserving America's classical culture. Matt, my husband, is 3 years younger and a former junior of mine, currently researching American classics in graduate school. He is still enrolled in a doctoral program, diligently working towards completing his dissertation to earn his PhD. Since he has a flexible schedule, he takes over tasks I can't fit into my day, like picking up Ryan from school or taking him to extracurricular activities. But that's not all. Honestly, Matt is far better at household chores than I am. He can't make elaborate dishes, but he is efficient in the kitchen. Besides his own study space, he keeps everything tidy with minimal effort. And he handles laundry and related tasks more delicately and carefully than I do. I can take care of our life. Can I ask you to handle the housework? Those were the words I proposed to him with. Honestly, I fell for those qualities of his. I'm just too busy, and I can't manage everything. I told him to keep on with his research without worrying about our livelihood. His parents were shocked too. "Are you treating our son like a gigolo?" they had said. But now it feels like a distant memory. However, after discussing our feelings, living arrangements, and our child, we ended up marrying. And he became a stay-at-home husband. It was an unusual pairing, but we were happily getting along. Then, one unexpected day, something happened. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was about to leave work and drive to pick up Ryan. A rarity since Matt, usually preoccupied with his thesis, would do it, when suddenly my phone rang. "Hello? Mom, what's up?" It was my mother. My hometown is far from where we currently live in the city center. About a 5 to 6 hour drive. Since getting married, whether we visit during Easter, Christmas, or any other holiday is always in question. So, we usually keep in touch via messaging apps, but direct phone calls are rare. My parents always consider my busy schedule and call at designated times. "Sandra, something serious has happened." "What's the matter, calling all of a sudden?" "Vanessa has come back." "Vanessa?" Vanessa is my sister, 2 years younger than me, but I haven't seen her in over 10 years. She left home at 18 and had been missing since. The company she was with went bankrupt. Bankrupt. Yes, she was banging on the intercom, and then she and her husband disappeared overnight because of a massive debt. She couldn't deal with debt collectors coming after her. So she got someone to write their name on it and filed for divorce. I inadvertently let out a gasp. And now? I told her she couldn't come in, but she shamelessly showed up. And even left her daughter with us. What? She left her there? Yes, and she's so small. I asked her age because she seemed really little. So, what surprised you? Well, when she came, I thought she was still in kindergarten. But she's a year younger than Ryan. What? Ryan is 9, so she should be in 2nd grade, but she looked like a kindergartner. Mom, is the girl that small? She's tiny and very skinny. Her skin is dry, and she's got chapped hands. I gave her some snacks and am bathing her now, but she seems very uncomfortable. My mother's voice seemed to be holding back tears, as if she would break down at any moment. But I had to ask one more thing. "You're not going to kick her out, are you, Mom?" "What are you talking about? Of course not. No matter how bad Vanessa is, this child is our granddaughter." "Oh, her clothes are tattered too." "That's good." So, Mom, where did Vanessa go after leaving the child? This was crucial to know. She's at your place, Sandra. What? Why my place? It seems she had talked to some old acquaintances before coming to our place. And they told her you had married a wealthy man. I instinctively put my hand on my forehead. Someone who doesn't know better shouldn't have half-told stories. Did that person give her our address? No, but they gave her your work-related SNS account. Work-related, huh? That can't be helped. I do need to promote certain aspects of my work through SNS. So Dad is hurrying over to your place right now. Dad is? So, please hold on until then. Wait, Mom, when did Vanessa? Before I could finish, the call ended. It's just past 3 p.m. After picking up Ryan from school and taking him to his lessons. Waiting for them to finish and then going shopping. Matt has been so absorbed since yesterday that he won't be able to cook tonight or all of tomorrow. So, shopping is absolutely necessary. And even if he does finish writing, he'll likely fall asleep without eating. Usually, after staying up for 3 days, he sleeps for a day and a half. Buying a large amount of ready-to-cook ingredients means it'll likely be past 6 p.m. by the time I'm done. It's worrying, but what will happen? Wait, Mom, you have a sister? Yes, I do. I see. In the car, after finishing the shopping, I decided to briefly explain the situation to Ryan. Surprised? Not really. I guess it's just the kind of thing that happens around here. At 9 years old and in 3rd grade, Ryan is quite sharp and a bit precocious. Being part of a slightly unconventional family, he understood quickly once I explained the situation. I think he must take after his father. When I was his age, I was just fighting loudly with my sister. Compared to that, Ryan is quiet and thoughtful. It's a bit worrying, actually. Well, yes. There's always a lot going on. In what way? Where should I start? There are things I can tell a child and things I cannot. You know the house where Mom and Ryan used to live, right? Yeah. It's near Grandpa and Grandma's house. My sister didn't like living in that town and ran away over 10 years ago with someone she loved. Wow. That's amazing. Hey. Yes, at 18, Vanessa eloped with a venture company president who was nearly 40 at the time. It wasn't really about love. Vanessa was involved in compensated dating, starting from high school. Our family never deprived Vanessa or me of anything. They saved enough money for us to attend the schools we liked, and we had ample allowances. But it seems that wasn't enough for Vanessa. She went to a private university in the city center. But when the first semester of her freshman year ended, the academic affairs office suddenly contacted me. It turned out Vanessa was pregnant. When our father angrily demanded to know who the father was, Vanessa simply confessed. It was the same person she had just divorced. Angered both by the compensated dating and the partner, our parents told Vanessa to leave. She left without fuss, and then she lost touch after moving in with him. If she had merely left, we might have been able to trace her through her health insurance card. But because she married him and was covered under his insurance, it became impossible to track her. Once the initial anger subsided, worry set in. It seemed almost rude that there was no contact at all. And my parents had many reasons to be angry. After all, my parents faced rumors at work and in the neighborhood. They felt embarrassed for raising a daughter who had done such things. I was a leading candidate for the department head position, but now it's going to be difficult, etc. I've heard many such unpleasant stories. However, what caught my attention in my mother's recent story was about the child who is now 8 years old. This means the child is not the one Vanessa was pregnant with all those years ago. I'm very curious about what happened to that child. Mom, you look scared, said Ryan. Sorry, I replied. Is there something you're worried about? Yes, it's about Ryan's cousin. Eventually, we reached our high-rise condo, struggling with the heavy shopping bags. It was so heavy that I considered asking the concierge for a cart at the entrance. Ms. White, your sister Ms. Hanson was here earlier. The concierge informed us. Did you let her in? We checked and copied her ID. Oh. I covered my eyes with my palm. I'm sorry, it's my fault for not being thorough with the security instructions. So, I shouldn't have let her in? Well, that's true. But it's okay. This time it's my fault. Also, has my father arrived yet? Your father? Please hold on, the concierge said and went to check again. He hasn't arrived yet. I see. When my father does arrive, please let him in immediately. Understood. I showed the concierge a photo of my father, emphasizing that he should definitely be allowed in. Then, we loaded our bags onto the cart and took the elevator to the top floor. We're home. And as we opened the door, sure enough, there were women's shoes. Oh, you're back early, said the voice of my sister, more flamboyant than I remembered. But appropriately aged. However, that wasn't the problem. What are you wearing? Vanessa had appeared in just her underwear. Ryan, who had been pushing the cart, stood wide-eyed and lost for words. What do you mean? She laughed out loud and tauntingly said to me, looks like I won the jackpot. I'll take the luxury high-rise condo and the rich husband. The poor should just keep working part-time forever. Ryan and I were simply astonished. But then, from behind, came the next voice. Too bad for you. Sleeping pills don't work on me anymore. Emerging from behind Vanessa, Matt appeared, casually draping a shirt over his bare skin. His disheveled appearance as he scratched his head could, when viewed alongside Vanessa's, be misconstrued as postcoital. However, such a thought never crossed my mind. It was impossible for him. I was confident of that. Because this guy tried to use that, it totally broke my concentration. Seriously. Wait, what? You knew it didn't work, you realized it was a sleeping pill? I did think it was strange that I felt so drowsy, but that doesn't mean I could actually sleep. No, that's just weird. Ignoring Vanessa's comments, Matt turned to Ryan. Ryan, thanks for doing the shopping. Yeah, Dad, help me put it away. Ryan said, pushing the cart inside. Okay, Matt replied and went with Ryan to the kitchen. Pushing the cart. As they moved, he muttered both irritably and deliberately. I knew Sandra had a sister and thought something might be up. But I never expected to be drugged right off the bat. But, my sleeping hours are a mess anyway. And I'm so full of thoughts right now that I can't sleep unless I actually try to. So, I can tell the difference between natural sleepiness and not. What? Vanessa's expression grew even more severe. Well, I figured you were up to something. So I just played along and pretended to sleep. What's this guy even doing? Matt spoke in a very matter-of-fact way, lining up his words one after the other. And facing him, who remained calm, Vanessa, who had seemed so confident earlier, was taken aback, not understanding what was happening. Whoa, what is with this guy? Well, it's not like she had much of a choice. What do you mean what? You're the one dressed like that. Did you strip that man's clothes off, trying to create a done deal or something? I sighed deeply. Oh, why has she always been so foolish? But considering how things unfolded, it's not hard to guess what happened. First, Vanessa found out I lived in a high-rise condo in the metropolitan area and made her way here. Then, posing as the sister of someone who lives in the top-floor penthouse of this high-rise, she gathered information in the neighborhood. She learned that Matt, while being a house husband, was involved in research potentially related to my current job. Thinking Matt would be home alone, she targeted a time when I was away. From Matt's perspective, probably after several presses of the doorbell, he finally answered to find a woman claiming to be my sister. And here he was, still half lost in his thesis and not fully back to reality. From Vanessa's perspective, a disheveled, almost pajama-clad man appeared. She probably thought, he's young. What? My sister snagged a younger, rich intellectual? That's so unfair. I'll steal him. Then, for some reason, she used the sleeping pills she happened to have with her, tried to put Matt to sleep, stripped him and pushed him into bed, aiming to present me with a fait accompli. But she didn't know Matt. Generally, when he's absorbed in his research or writing, he forgets about time and meals. Trying such a thing on someone like him was pointless. And I knew it better than anyone. Wait, she tried to create a fait accompli with me? At that, Matt's voice grew louder and he burst into laughter. What would that even achieve? The house is all Sandra's, you know? Yeah, what's this old lady even talking about? Hey, that's rude, what do you mean by this kid? Well, he can rightly call you auntie, since he's my son after all. What? Your son? But he's so big. He's still in his 20s, right? Well, yes, he's from my previous marriage. Remarried? So, the wealthy marriage was. You wouldn't know since you've been away so long. With that, I was finally able to enter my own home. As I hung up my coat and placed my bag down, Matt brewed some coffee, saying, "You must be tired." My gaze wandered to the living room table where a half-open bag lay carelessly placed. The room, kept clean except for my personal space, felt oddly disordered just from that bag. It was displeasing. I wanted to tidy it up immediately. What, you won't even serve me a cup of coffee? Vanessa glared at me jealously as I sipped my delicious tea. I don't really feel like serving someone who would drug their tea. Besides, how long do you plan to stay in that outfit? I don't want a pervert roaming around my house. First explain to me. Why do you own this high-rise condo? Oh, why can't my sister ever engage in a proper conversation? Well, fine, I suppose I have to explain for her to understand. You see, when my previous husband died leaving his child behind, he left us a lot of wealth. That's how I bought this place. Not with a loan, but in cash. Huh? You're in cash? But, this place costs millions. Well, this is just 1/100th of the real estate I currently own. Vanessa was speechless. Yes, the top floor of this high-rise condo is completely mine. That's not all. I currently own numerous properties, with a total asset value of $200 million. Not only does the income from these properties allow for a wealthy lifestyle, but I am also a consultant for an organization involved in cultural projects, protecting American classical culture. Half of it is for tax purposes, and the other half is for Matt. So my busy daily work involves being a director for that organization. Occasionally, I receive reports related to land. Explaining all this to her. Sandra owns all this? Yes, me. Because, Vanessa, you wouldn't know since I got married right after graduating from university. And you probably don't even know why. What is it? Because of the serious trouble you caused, Dad's credibility at his company plummeted. And we had a lot of difficulties. Humph. A grown daughter can do whatever she wants. You weren't even of legal age back then, were you? You had been involved in compensated dating since high school, which only added to Mom's embarrassment, as it showed she couldn't educate her daughter properly. Then, coincidentally, a marriage proposal came from the Cooper family. The Cooper family? Yes, they were considered the lords of our region, that family. What? You married into that prestigious family? Matt sighed and then said, "Let's move over there for a bit, Ryan." Ryan, understanding it was an adult conversation, moved away. So, you married into that family? Yes. But not to the person you're thinking of. I married the older brother, who was the heir. What? The bedridden waste of space, the burden of the Cooper family? Yes, him. Indeed, my former husband had been described that way. Born frail, he hardly ever went to school and always had doctors around him. That's why he was considered a burden to his prestigious family. But that was only the perspective from outsiders. His parents and his younger brother, the next heir, didn't think of him that way. Everyone loved him, a man without desires. He happened to fall in love with me when I was visiting home and saw me at the hospital. Then, the lords of the Cooper family came to our house to ask for my hand in marriage because their son, who had never wanted anything before, had made his one and only request, even pleading to me, who was much younger. I got married at the age of 22, hoping it would somewhat widen my parents' shoulders. My former husband passed away when Ryan was still in my womb. Even the pregnancy was through artificial insemination. He didn't have the strength to conceive a child naturally. It was a wish of my in-laws, and I agreed for the sake of my gentle former husband. My former husband was able to watch my belly grow but passed away without seeing his child, leaving only his name. As a young widow, my in-laws thanked me and left me an inheritance as per his will. However, some relatives eyed the substantial inheritance I received like vultures. So I moved to a high-security high-rise condo in the city center when Ryan started kindergarten. As I further explained, Vanessa shook her head and hands saying, "No, no, 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 how can I believe such a fairy tale-like story?" She yelled at me with utter disbelief. What can I say? So what about him now? You received such an inheritance and you're allowed to remarry. I was allowed. Well, I didn't really need permission, but I consulted them anyway. They were really good in-laws, and I felt bad. But they said they were sorry I had to spend the best years of my youth caring for a sick man and going through an artificial pregnancy. That should be enough with the inheritance you got. Time and life cannot be bought with money, they said. My gentle in-laws, who had lost a beloved son to illness, understood these two values very well. Perhaps because they were wealthy. Later, when I moved to the city center, I was exhausted from single parenting. So different from the life with my in-laws. That's when I reconnected with Matt, a junior from my university days who had admired me. He became a great help to me when I was overwhelmed. As he started coming around more, Ryan grew attached to him, and I thought it would be nice to have him by my side, so I proposed. My in-laws described Matt as a harmless person who seems interested in nothing but his studies. They didn't object to the remarriage, in fact, they supported it. Possibly as a check against relatives who might try to push their preferred partners on me to induce a remarriage. As if you're the only one who gets to be happy, Vanessa began to say when my phone rang. A call at this time meant, I switched to speaker mode after picking up. Hello, Sandra. I hadn't heard back from you for a while, are you okay? Vanessa groaned on the spot. Oh, Mom, I'm fine. That's good. By the way, I just heard a voice like someone stepped on a frog. Is Vanessa there by any chance? Yes, she is. I looked at Vanessa with a big smile. Mom? Why do you know here? You really have a memory like a sieve, Vanessa. You were the one who said you were going to your sister's place. That's terrible. Why is there such a difference in how you treat your daughters? Vanessa shouted angrily at the phone. What? Are you in any position to say that? After you left, until Sandra married into the Cooper family, the situation around our home. It wasn't quite ostracism, but because Dad held a good position in the company. We were the subject of terrible rumors. That only ended after 2 years because of Sandra. The Cooper family pulled some strings, which helped our neighbors, relatives, and Dad's faction at work. You nearly destroyed everything Dad worked for at the most important company in our city. That's your problem. I didn't ask him to climb the corporate ladder. Still, it's thanks to him that we were able to enter a private university in the city center. Sure, but that doesn't give you the right to act all high and mighty. Maybe. But Vanessa, what happened to the child you were carrying back then? My mother's voice turned chillingly cold as she asked Vanessa. What? You ran away with him when you got pregnant, right? So what happened to that child? That, he took the child with him. I contacted that he you mentioned. Vanessa moaned. With the Cooper connection, when I searched for you, I got his mobile number. My mother continued relentlessly. He apologized for running away, thanked me for the divorce. Said he was mediocre at making money but a better person than you. He can't tell me where he is, but he's working somewhere far away. Trying to repay his debts. Alone. Alone? I asked my mother. Yes, alone. You can imagine what that means, right, Sandra? My mother mentioned that the child Vanessa brought was in terrible condition. I quickly turned towards Vanessa. You, the child. Stop it. Why are you looking at me like that? Mom said the little girl you left with her was very thin. That's because things have been tough lately. People who are going through tough times don't carry that kind of bag. I pointed to the bag thrown on the living room table. That's clearly a designer brand, isn't it? I bought it 2 or 3 years ago. Mom said she looks like a kindergartner, even though she's only a year younger than Ryan. Isn't that right, Mom? That's right. Mother's voice grew even lower. Her name was Anna, right? Was she attending kindergarten or school properly? Her speech seems a bit delayed too. Of course, she was. Grandma, is Mom over there? A frail voice came from the other side. Yes, Anna. Do you want to talk to Mom? No. I definitely don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to Mom's place. Anna, Vanessa's daughter, began to cry on the other side. I don't want to become like my sister. I see. It seemed there were unspeakable truths hidden in her words. I've been talking to her intermittently just now. She seems to have had a sister, apparently. The past tense indicated something more. I don't know anything about that. With that, Vanessa quickly moved to grab her bag and clothes. That's not going to happen. Matt grabbed her hand, and Ryan secured the bag and clothes. Then, turning to another smartphone. Hello, Grandpa, now's the time. With that signal, the front door opened. This is the police. We received a report of unlawful entry and assault. And we're here to detain a woman accused of child abuse. Sandra. You did well to keep her here so long. Dad. Several police officers secured Vanessa on the spot. Are you all right, Ms. White? Yes, I'm fine. The concierge was also standing at the entrance. He was the one who opened the door. It's been a while, Vanessa. Dad. One of the police officers took the clothes and bag from Ryan. They didn't have the luxury to dress her in those clothes. So a blanket they had likely brought was wrapped around her. Matt pointed to the bag and said, I haven't checked inside, but I believe it contains sleeping pills. I'll accompany you for a blood test. I have a resistance to them. But they should still be detectable in my blood. Thank you for your cooperation, they replied. Then, through the phone, my mother asked me to switch to camera mode. Then, I saw my mother on the screen, holding a little girl in her arms. Officers, it seems that this girl's mother also did something terrible to her first child, leading to the loss of a small life. Our first grandchild. Anna was wearing clothes that Ryan had worn when he was much younger. It wasn't clear whether they would fit her as Ryan was quite large for his age when he entered kindergarten. Still, the clothes seemed slightly small but wearable. Her slender wrists were visible from the sleeves. Ah, those are my clothes. Hello, are you Anna? Ryan gently spoke to his cousin through the screen. This kindness must be inherited from his biological father. Yes. Who are you? I'm Ryan. I'm your cousin, a year older than you, so I'm your big brother. Big brother. As she spoke, perhaps reminded of her lost sibling, Anna started to fuss again. Come visit us sometime. Yes, the little girl nodded on the screen. Then, Sandra, will take her away now. Sorry for the intrusion. Ryan, play chess with Grandpa later. Okay, I'll be waiting. Immediately after our exchange. What is this? You all have your little family drama. And I have lost everything. Hearing this, I walked up to Vanessa and slapped her sharply across the face. No. Violent woman. Officer, arrest her too for obstructing public duties. While restraining the struggling Vanessa, one of the officers smiled wryly at me and tried to calm things down. I'm sorry. But I just had to tell my sister. What is it? You lost everything because of your own actions, not anyone else's. Nothing is coming back to you, and I won't let it. I will make that child ours. Stay away from us forever. Let's go, everyone. Matt urged his father. That's right. See you later then, Sandra. I'll be waiting, Dad. Take care, dear. After seeing everyone off, I slumped down where I was. It's okay, Mom. I'm really tired. It's good that we did the shopping today. Indeed. What a day it had been. It's only been about 6 hours since Mom called. Later, Dad and Matt returned and said that Vanessa would be detained by the police for a while. No bail. Absolutely not. While we were having a late dinner, Dad said with a strained voice, "She's already divorced, and there's no one on her side to take her back. Let's just let her be tried swiftly." Indeed, after some time, Vanessa was convicted. She had inflicted pain on her own family, caused the death of one child, and was abandoned by the surviving child. Now, she must face a long life ahead alone. Sometime later, my parents brought Anna to our house. "Hey, you've gotten pretty cute." Anna blushed at Ryan's comment. "Where on earth did you learn to speak like that?" Stop it, Dad, that tickles." "Stop it." Ryan laughed as he played with Matt. Anna watched this scene of her adoptive father and brother in astonishment, then gazed blankly at us. "Is it really okay, Auntie?" She hesitated over her words, asking if she could live here. I had already decided to adopt her at that moment, thinking it was the best solution. I even considered initially having her grow up with my parents. However, there was concern that back home, she might be stigmatized as that girl's child. My parents felt. They also planned to move closer to me after they retired. Until then, we agreed to travel together during holidays. It seems Anna is a bit behind in her studies, so attending the same school as Ryan might be difficult. Nonetheless, the life we can provide her now will be much better than her previous one. Now that the source of our troubles is gone, we can focus on slowly working towards happiness. We have plenty of time.